Okay, guys, today we're going to look at energy systems. So by the end of this, you should be able to recognize adenosine triphosphate as a molecule that is broken down to create energy in your body. Recognize how adenosine triphosphate is broken down to produce energy. Name the three energy systems that resynthesize adenosine triphosphate. Recognize the role of the major nutrients to create energy. Describe the three energy system during aerobic and anaerobic exercise, and recognize the interaction of the energy systems during exercise. You should also be able to recognize factors that influence the energy system. For example, the intensity, the duration of your workout, and your current fitness levels. So let's get into it. So we need energy to produce movement. It also produces force, is useful in cell and tissue formation, helps to keep your brain functioning, neural function, helps the homeostasis, also helps your metabolism and your organ function. Your metabolism meaning your BMR, your basal metabolic rate. Can you remember BMR? It's the amount of calories that you need to eat just to lie in bed all day, to maintain brain function, to keep the heart pumping, to keep your lungs working, and other internal organs. So adenosine triphosphate, ATP for short, energy comes from a breakdown of a chemical substance known as adenosine triphosphate. The energy the energy currency of the body. The only fuel the human body will recognize. Without ATP, your body would cease to exist. So let's have a look. So here you can see 1, 2, 3 phosphates and 1 adenosine. So as one phosphate is released here, it creates that energy. Once the phosphate is released and the energy is created, we then are left with adenosine diphosphate, 1, 2. So ATP has 1, 2, 3 phosphates. Once one phosphate is released, it creates that energy explosion. Once the energy explosion has happened, we're left with 2 phosphates and therefore adenosine diphosphate. Any questions so far, guys? Please drop me a comment and I'll get back to you. Okay, so let's look at the characteristics of ATP. Limited stores within the muscle. It lasts for about 1 or 2 seconds. After those 1 or 2 seconds, it has to be remade. So resynthesis of ATP will come down or comes from the breakdown of creatine phosphate and then certain nutrients that we eat in our diet. So let's have a look now at the energy systems you have in your body. You have three energy systems in your body. We have the phosphocreatine, we have the lactate, and the aerobic phosphocreatine or creatine phosphate. It may be noted in either phosphocreatine or creatine phosphate. Lactate and the aerobic system. So let's look one by one. So phosphocreatine, it utilizes creatine phosphate as a chemical energy to make ATP almost instantly. So we're probably looking at the word creatine here, right? So all of you guys who are going down to the supplement store to get more creatine because you think that you need it, your body will automatically create what it needs. So if you're injecting more than it needs, your body will just waste it. So if you're buying creatine, the only person that's gonna benefit from you purchasing that creatine is the shop owner. That is why they drive Porsche and you drive Yaris. Let's look now. Creatine phosphate supplies in the muscle last for about 6 to 10 seconds. So if you have 6 to 10 seconds of energy, start thinking about what kind of athlete would use creatine phosphate that would last between 6 and 10 seconds. Rapid energy for short periods where the exercise intensity is maximal. It's an explosive exercise or explosive energy system. It does not require oxygen, fat, or carbohydrate. It has no wasting products, no fatiguing waste products. So here we've got the ADP plus the TCP equals ATP plus creatine. So we've got ADP, remember the adenosine diphosphate, plus the creatine phosphate equals adenosine triphosphate. So it's the addition of the creatine phosphate that creates this and creatine. So let's have a look. Activities are 100-meter sprinters, javelins, shot putters, golf swingers. Remember, it's a short, sharp, explosive exercise. The lactate system, again, anaerobic, uses stored glycogen to remake the ATP. It provides ATP when oxygen is not freely available. It produces a fatiguing byproduct called lactic acid. You will feel the burning sensation in your muscles when you use the lactate system. It lasts between about 1 to 3 minutes of intense activity, around 60 to 95% of your maximum effort. So now I start thinking 1 to 3 minutes of high intense activity. What kind of athlete would use the lactate system? If you say a 400-meter runner, 100-meter swimmer, 200-meter swim, or the hurdles, you're in the right ballpark. Now, lastly, aerobic system. So the aerobic system is created from the breakdown of carbohydrates and fat in the presence of oxygen. ATP, adenosine triphosphate, breakdown in the place of mitochondria. Mitochondria is the power within the cell. Waste products are carbon dioxide and water. It's a long duration. It's a low to moderate intensity of up to 60% of your maximum effort. Increase cardiovascular fitness will improve the delivery of oxygen to the working muscles, allowing the aerobic system to produce ATP at a higher intensity. Athletes, long distance runners, marathon runners, triathletes, long distance swimmers, and long distance cyclists. So remember, creatine phosphate, lactate, and aerobic, because it may pop up on your exam. So I've already mentioned mitochondria, so it's known as the powerhouse within the cell. Location of aerobic energy production. Anaerobic produces energy outside of the cell. The more mitochondria they are, and the larger they are, the more potential there is for energy production. Training can enhance mitochondrial density and therefore improve exercise performance. Mitochondria. Let's have a little look at this. If I just move that. Okay, so we've got creatine phosphate, lactate, and aerobic. If we look at the creatine phosphate, remember, we're going to be using type 2B muscle fiber. Lactate system is going to be using type 1A muscle fiber, and the aerobic system type 1. So if you start now thinking about how we can link this into your client's training goal. So for example, if your client wants to burn fat, we're looking at the aerobic system using type 1 muscle fiber at about 60% of the client's maximum effort. If you want hypertrophy training, muscle building, we're looking at the lactate system, type 2A muscle fiber, and between 60 and 95% of the client's maximum effort. Then for strength training, remember, it's that one-off explosive exercise. It's again anaerobic, type 2B muscle fiber, short durations, so we can do like 1, 2, 3 repetitions maximum, and it's 95 to 100% maximum effort. So let's start thinking about what energy system your client will be using when they're doing either a fat loss or endurance training program, or a hypertrophy muscle building training program, or a strength training program. So we see here's a little graph, the blue showing the creatine phosphate, the red showing lactate, and the lime showing aerobic. So energy systems are unlikely to work in isolation. They will work together to produce energy efficiently. So if you're all sitting down and you're watching this and you were to stand up, what energy system would you use? Remember, it's a short, sharp, explosive movement. So if you're screaming, it's going to be creatine phosphate, you'd be correct. So if I start walking, a gentle walk, what energy system would I transition from creatine phosphate into? If you're saying aerobic, you're correct. Then I break into a jog. Then I start to run at about 75% of my maximum effort. I will transfer into the lactate system. Then I will then run out of energy eventually. Then I will transfer back into the aerobic system and then sitting back down. So for example here, 100-meter swimmer, the lactate system will be predominantly used, then the aerobic system as the lactate system fails. Remember, type 2A muscle fiber can take on the characteristics of either type 2B muscle fiber, or they can take on the characteristics of the type 1 muscle fiber. So things that will influence what energy system we use are your current fitness levels. So if you're pretty unfit, you'll probably stay using the aerobic energy system. The intensity of the exercise, remember, if you're about 95%, 100% maximum, you're going to be creatine phosphate. If you're about 50% maximum effort, you're going to be using aerobic. So whatever the intensity of the workout is going to determine the energy system. The duration of the workout. Remember, if it's between 6 and 10 seconds at high intensity, it's going to be creatine phosphate. If it's about 50% maximum intensity and duration about 1 hour, it's going to be using aerobic energy system. The amount of stored fuel, meaning how much fuel, glycogen, you have in your muscle and your liver, and your body's ability to store and utilize that fuel. So let's have a look at where we're getting the energy from. So carbohydrates, for every gram of carbohydrates that you eat is equal to 4 calories. Every gram of protein that you eat is equal to 4 calories. And every gram of fat that you eat, you're looking at 9 calories. Carbohydrates is stored as glycogen. It's stored in the muscle and the liver, and any excess that you eat will be stored as fat. Protein is broken into amino acids, and any excess of protein that you eat will also be stored as fat. Fats are turned into fatty acids and stored around your vital organs or your adipose tissue. Remember, your adipose tissue, your subcutaneous adipose tissue, is in your skin. And then your visceral fat is protecting your internal organs, your kidneys, your liver. So nutrients to resynthesize ATP, adenosine triphosphate, usually sourced from internal body stores. So there are limited circumstances when carbohydrates fueling may be required. So if the exercise that you're doing is more than about 90 minutes, you're going to have to refuel. Or if you haven't had a pre-exercise meal, you may need to refuel during the workout. Okay, so now you should be able to recognize adenosine triphosphate as a molecule, recognize how adenosine triphosphate is broken down to produce energy, name the 3 energy systems, remember creatine phosphate, lactate, and aerobic, recognize the role of the main nutrients in your body, remember carbohydrates, 4 calories, protein, 4 calories, and fat, 9 calories. If you're a drinker and you drink alcohol, 7 calories. Describe how the 3 energy systems are utilized during aerobic and anaerobic activity. Recognize the interaction between the energy systems during exercise, and recognize the factors that influence this energy system during the intensity of the workout, the duration, or the individual fitness levels. Okay, guys, as always, leave me a comment if you're struggling with something from this lesson or this little mini tutorial, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for your time.